This channel is usually not very serious, but for the past couple of years, I've been doing a lot of research under the radar, and I don't think the tone I usually have in my videos would fit with the information I've discovered, especially since no one else seems to have said much of anything about this. So if you can bear with me being more serious than usual, I'd like to share with you one of TF2's biggest mysteries that you probably never even heard about. On June 23rd, 2020, popular medic player Array7 uploaded this video, Aged and Confused. If you haven't seen it, it's a simple, relaxing video of Array and Uncle Dane having a friendly chat over some casual gameplay. They eventually begin discussing some of the weirder interactions they've had playing TF2, and Array shares a story from when Casual first came out. He joins the server and notices that the majority of players on both teams were unmoving and lifeless. They had hats, indicating that they weren't bots, but still, silence. This was very intriguing to me because this was not the first time I had heard about this kind of thing happening. Casual mode in TF2 was released July 8th, 2016, around the same time frame I heard about this phenomenon in none other than a TF2 voice chat conversation, but just like everyone else, I paid little attention to it. But after hearing about it again in Array's video, years later, I knew there was more to the story that I was missing. So I dug through forum posts, YouTube comments, Discord chat logs, and finally, I was able to corroborate enough evidence to explain why this happened. Here's everything I've found since then. From what I've gathered, it started with two people. The first was a player named PH. PH was heavily involved in the trading scene around the years of 2014 to 2015. He frequented trade servers like the Vatican, never really bothering to play TF2 in the conventional way, thus hindering his mechanical skill in the game. But this is something that he didn't care for, as at the time it simply wasn't his thing. After all, he had racked up an impressive inventory worth just over $20,000 US. Being a trader as high profile as he was, he had a lot of connections to people, one of them being our second person in question, a modern programmer by the name of Sizzler. Sizzler had a number of mods posted to Game Banana, things like HUDs, weaponry skins, different light warps, and even some more advanced projects like additional config changes and custom game modes. At one point, PH reached out to Sizzler about a mod idea. You see, PH was slowly starting to play TF2 outside of trade servers, but he wasn't particularly enjoying his experience. He found himself getting frustrated with the game, and you can even find some of his old forum posts where he expresses his frustration over certain weapons or playstyles. His idea for Sizzler was ambitious, an overhaul of TF2's offline mode, where the game actually resembles a server of real people. The bots would wear hats, type in chat, have realistically generated names, everything, all with bot difficulty and behavior functionality and mod compatibility. It would be a way for PH and people like him to enjoy the game without needing to dump hundreds of hours developing skills you would need for first-person shooter games, while also not having to deal with the base game's limited bot support. Sizzler liked the idea, so he got to work, with PH helping out by learning some basic programming to speed up development, as well as contributing to playtesting. On July 13th, 2015, the first playable version of the mod, simply titled Sizzler's Mod, was released. The mod was available for download on Sizzler's own website. Unfortunately, this is the only snapshot that exists of the website. The mod received little attention, but it served its purpose for PH and the few other people that had received word of the project. After a few months, the mod started to gain some ground in a small portion of the community. It became fairly popular among other modders because of how much more streamlined working with AIs was. Here's an old demonstration of the menu that was included. Because of the increased traffic to the website, Sizzler had to upscale his old page, and this time around, an archive of it does exist, which I will link in the description. There's not much on the website, but what is most interesting to me is the name. Somewhere along the way, the L was dropped, evidenced by a few forum posts. Sizzler just rolled with it, accepting Scissors Mod as the new name, only for people to shorten it even further and refer to it as Scissors for convenience. But the mod wasn't perfect. After the launch of Casual mode in TF2 even more months later, Sizzler did not bother to update the mod at all, and this appeared to cause some problems right away. Joining a public game after closing the mod could sometimes cause the internal workings of TF2 to get confused. It couldn't figure out if you were in a real game with real people or a game with bots that looked like real people. And this is where our quiet servers full of AFK players come from. The download is still up on the archived website, and I was able to recreate the AFK phenomenon here. 24 real players, Valve server, no movement in sight. I highly recommend you do not try to do this yourself. Dude, it's so quiet. Look, there's nothing out here. Hello? You in there? But this doesn't explain how it was finding its way onto other people's systems. Code from Sizzler's mod would get into other people's mods, and even some workshop mods. It would also propagate through community servers, given how much junk gets downloaded when you join some of them. Thankfully, most people would never see the so-called symptoms, but the occasional person would. Random chat messages from people that weren't in the game, jumbled Unicode characters, and supposedly code from the mod itself. And it was causing innocent people to receive VAC bans. Have you ever wanted to use a decal tool on a photo badge? If you have, then you'll know how annoying it is to get rid of this awful filter Valve put. In order to get a colored badge, you would need a third-party software to bypass the filter, which Valve's anti-cheat would detect and ban you for, had you join a VAC-secured server with it open. Sizzlers worked the same way. This message was included very clearly at the top of the page. Sizzler would not take responsibility for a mistake that users would make, and that's completely fair. But with this recent wave of bans, the users could not be the ones to take the blame. More cracks in the mod began to appear, and complaints about other features started to pile up, with many users telling others to just get rid of it altogether and to never even open your game with it on, offline or not. Early on, users were not fans of this, the sign-in button. For whatever reason, Sizzler made it mandatory to log in with a Steam account before installing the mod. The mod was designed to store user data, and Sizzler said it was for security reasons. And the majority of users didn't actually mind. Essentially, you could have your account and use the mod all you want, but if you signed into Steam with a second account, the mod would not work again unless you use the site to sort of register the new account to it. Sizzler received a fair amount of backlash from people about this specific feature, to which he responded with, "The site will always be up anyway. I don't get what the big deal is." On September 8th, 2016, the site went down. The amount of VAC bans was few and far between, practically making all the warnings get swept under the rug, and Steam support was no help. But Sizzler knew about every single one, as his contact email was being flooded with complaints, and of course some threats. He quickly removed the site to stop anyone else from becoming a victim. All the while, Sizzler was relaying everything to PH, and they both knew they had to do something quick. They had ideas to fix the issue, and were trying as many things as they could, including reaching out to Steam and seeing if they can get some assistance from Valve's own engineers. While waiting for a response, PH decided to do some troubleshooting on his own, but since the site was down, PH was forced to use his main account. It would be risky, but he had no choice. He turned on the mod and ran TF2. So far, nothing bad had happened. The mod seemed to be stable, but PH couldn't help his constant feeling of guilt. He kept thinking of all the innocent people whose accounts were destroyed because of his idea. In his panic state, PH accidentally began to join a public game during his troubleshooting. Before he knew it, his account had received a VAC ban. His entire inventory, full of rare hats and other items valued at over $20,000, was now locked in the account and could never be traded or sold again. All the time and money invested, gone in an instant. PH had quite possibly the biggest lapse in judgment known to man. He should have never run with scissors.